love song, lullaby me to my grave. Love song, dedicated to the ones I hate, the ones who instigate. I'm sick and tired of placing my hope in the light. I got two eyes, but you must think I am blind.
Eine neue Folge des herrlichen Videopodcasts JazzrockTV. Heute der zweite Teil über die I.M.F.s. Man traut sich ja kaum zu sagen, was es heißt. Sag's uns doch mal.
Wir haben ja eben überlegt, was sagen wir? Aber ich glaube, man kann es ruhig sagen. Es ist zu später Stunde.
Die International Motherfuckers.
International Motherfuckers. Es ist ja eigentlich ein super Name. Also wir haben eben ja schon überlegt, ne? Was ist vielleicht so unter den Top 10 in der Bravo oder so? Ich glaube, sie werden nicht aufgeführt, oder?
Ja, International Motherfuckers ist so der ideale Name für Rockstars, um sich zu vermarkten.
Ja, ich glaube auch.
Also es ist besser als Bon Jovi oder Aerosmith oder
Whitesnake ist auch scheiße.
Whitesnake ist scheiße.
I.M.F.
Motorhead, Mötley Crüe, ja, mit Ös und Üs und so. Das funktioniert vielleicht in der Türkei. Aber International Motherfuckers funktioniert auf der ganzen Welt. Kauft nur keiner. Geht auch keiner hin. Und das ist traurig, weil bei den International Motherfuckers sind nämlich absolute Superstars am Werke. Ja. Bernard Fowler, nicht Bernard Fowler, sondern Bernard Fowler, ja, aus New York City, heute in Los Angeles zu Hause. Am Gesang, singt seit 21 Jahren bei den Rolling Stones. Also ich habe ja hier neben ihm gesessen beim Interview, wir werden nachher noch ein bisschen was sehen aus dem Interview. Das war schon so ein Gefühl, ein leichtes Gefühl, als wenn Mick Jagger da sitzen würde. Ja, also wer seit über 20 Jahren Mick Jagger irgendwie ein Küsschen auf die Wange gibt zur Begrüßung, sind einem die Stones schon sehr nah. Ja. Und dann war dabei
Stevie Salas.
Stevie Salas.
Auch bei Rolling Stones gespielt.
Ja, bei Rod Stewart gespielt, bei Bootsy Collins gespielt. Also
große Namen, große Künstler.
Dave Abbruzzese.
Habe ich immer Probleme, den Namen auszusprechen.
Ja, von Pearl Jam. Also in den 90er Jahren bei Pearl Jam gewesen, als Pearl Jam die Riesenkarriere gemacht hat, quasi so hinter Nirvana her, ne? Als Grunge, einer der ersten Grunge-Rock-Acts. Und da war Dave Abbruzzese, wirklich ein Drummer, der hinten so den Backbeat hält. Ne? Der war dabei. Und am Bass war...
Ja, und am Bass natürlich T.M. Stevens. Da schlägt jedes Bassistenherz höher. Also wenn man den auf der Bühne sieht, was er da veranstaltet, mit welcher Energie er da zugange ist, das macht schon Spaß. Also das muss man einfach mal gesehen haben. Also
absolut.
Und auch er hat ja viel, auch so Popkram gespielt, und hat viel mit Joe Cocker war ja lange in der Liveband. Okay. Und also das war schon ein toller Abend, oder?
Ja, also T.M. Stevens auch so ein Showman, wie er im Buche steht. Als die Band sich vor dem Gig noch so ein bisschen zurückgezogen hat, war T.M. Stevens an der Bar bei uns, bei den Jungs, ja, und hat jedem irgendwie, hi, nice to see you.
Er wollte mittendrin sein, er wollte alles mitkriegen.
Ich kenne dich doch noch vom Joe Cocker-Konzert 1982 in der Philipshalle.
Genau, da saß du noch hinten, dritte Reihe, ich erinnere mich noch.
Genau, also die 4 Stars. Eigentlich gehört ein anderer Bassist in diese Band, nämlich Jarrah Harris, aber der war aus familiären Gründen, wir wissen nicht, was war, leider verhindert. Muss auch ein sehr guter Mann sein. Und das sind jetzt also die aktuellen Motherfuckers. Und langer Rede, kurzer Sinn, hier mal ein bisschen was aus dem Konzert.
man. Ralph, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, good. A little cold, but good, because we're in here now.
The studio's not so cold, but I'm still so cold. It's a snowstorm outside.
Ja, outside. Ja, wir haben inzwischen Himalaya-artige Verhältnisse hier in Köln. Und die Jungs sind natürlich anderes Wetter gewohnt. Where are you coming from USA?
Well, I came, home base is New York. No, home base is Los Angeles, but home is New York.
San Diego is home, and I also live in Los Angeles. But we did tour rehearsals this time in San Diego, down at the beach where I live near Carlsbad.
Yeah, we didn't get to see much beach though.
Yeah, that's true.
So and now you're in freezing cold Germany with the I.M.F.s. Can you tell us what the I.M.F.s are?
Okay, the I.M.F.s. Okay, let me tell you where that came from.
Tell me. Get on my kid. I'm doing some shit while you do that.
Okay. I was on tour with the Stones, and Keith and I and a few of the other cats, you know, we were talking. We were talking about how much we were traveling, and I think I said, "Yeah, man, we were traveling a lot, and there was an article." There was an article in a paper, so I picked it up, and it said I.M.F. It was about the International Monetary Fund. So I picked it up and I showed it to Keith, and I said, Keith, and Keith said, "We're some international motherfuckers, aren't we?" So that's where that came from.
Because we started saying that when we were doing the Nickel Bag album, because we used to call but I never knew where it came from, because we were in New York recording in the mid-'90s, and we'd say our little group of friends, we would say, we're a bunch of international motherfuckers, like our private gang, right? Doug Wimbish or whoever, and we played with all the big people around the world, and we always were flying around, and that's when we just started calling ourselves the international motherfuckers.
It started with Keith. It started with Keith, and then we were looking to do this because we hadn't done anything together since the Nickel Bag record. So when we discussed about getting together again, we were looking for a name to call it because we didn't want to call it Nickel Bag anymore. That name didn't serve us well. So Stevie said, "Why don't we just call it the I.M.F.?"
It was like we did the Nickel Bag albums in the mid-'90s, and in certain parts of the world they did pretty well, but we kind of stopped. I went back to do my solo stuff. He went back on the Stones tours, and then by the time we got back together to think about doing some stuff again, a band called Nickelback had come out that does this real corporate rock and roll, right, from Canada, and people would come up and go, "Dude, are you a Nickelback?" And we're like, "No, fuck no, man." So we just realized I don't even want to ever say the name Nickelback again because have somebody think it's Nickelback.
Nickelback, right.
Bernard looks a lot like the singer in Nickelback. You know, I can see where
look just like him. We even sound alike when we sing.
Yeah, that shit was too country for me.
Not.
So we had to change it, and what happened was I stopped touring for a while. Bernard had been touring, but I came over to Europe and was asked to come back if I wanted to come back and start playing again, because I used to come here a lot. And I thought, I don't want to come here with my trio. It's just such stressful work, and I have much more fun when me and Bernard tour. So I told the promoters, I'm going to come back and I want to bring Bernard Fowler. And that's when we said, we don't want to call it the Nickel Bag Tour. And so we said, let's just tour and call it the International Motherfuckers. And that way we can bring any of our friends we want and play any music we want to play is within our little group of, whether it's Dave Abbruzzese or Brian Tichy or T.M. Stevens or Jared Slapback or Amp Fiddler or Ivan Neville or whoever. They're all a part of our gang of international motherfuckers, and that way we can kind of free up the music, and each tour we can do a different style, different sounds, different songs, whatever we would feel like kind of pulling off somewhat within our range of what we can do.
Yeah, great. So Stevie hat die Gitarre schon auf den Knien. Would you like to play us a few bars?
What do you want to play?
Play a few bars, man.
What do you want to play?
You're doing just fine.
Anything you can do to get out of having to work, right?
You're doing fine, man.
nobody sings Red Rooster better than Bernard. I bet you Mick Jagger wish he could sing it as good as you sing.
Oh man, Mick does just fine. I am the little red rooster, too lazy to crow for day. I am the little red rooster, too lazy to crow for day. Keep everything in the farmyard, upset in every way, yeah. The dogs begin to bark, and the hounds begin to howl. Said the dogs begin to bark, and the hounds begin to howl. Howl, yeah. Watch out, you country people, little red rooster is on the prowl, yeah. Stevie, play a little bit for him. If anybody see little red rooster, drive him on home. If anybody see little red rooster, please drive her home. Oh, home, yeah. Ain't been no peace in the farmyard since little red rooster has been gone. Oh, oh yeah, oh yeah, 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 oh yeah, yeah.
Not bad for the PV.
That was awesome. Great, great. Thank you very much. My goodness. This was a Rolling Stones number, Little Red Rooster.
Yeah.
Howlin' Wolf. Yeah, okay. It was but covered by the Rolling Stones.
Absolutely covered.
And this was almost the ritual. Was einige von euch, ihr wisst es bestimmt alle, Bernard Fowler ist ein Rolling Stone seit, I don't know, 20 years. How long are you Rolling Stone?
21 years now, off and on for about 21 years.
Yeah. Und also jeder, der schon mal beim Rolling Stones Konzert war, hat ihn vielleicht gesehen, on the left side, right beside Lisa Fischer.
That's right.
Yeah, and,
the best legs in rock and roll.
And one of the best voices too.
No question.
My goodness.
She sings on the Nickelback, man. She's on. We have the I.M.F.s best of greatest hits collection coming out in Germany next week. Yeah. And Lisa Fischer's on it too.
Lisa's on it.
Is she on? Is the track on there?
Lisa's on it. I'm not sure if that is on. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Remember.
But she's on it, and also Ronnie Wood is on it. We're gonna be doing, hopefully in the near future we'll be doing something new, and I've been holding this for a long time, but hopefully the new stuff is as good as I hope it will be, and then I'll call Keith and ask Keith to come in and play some guitar for us. That's been a dream of mine for a long time, but I've just been holding that back.
He almost
but it's
did
time
in Mexico.
Now. It's time now.
And remember in Mexico City, we went to Mexico City and we were recording, and Ronnie Wood came to the studio, and I remember Keith said, Ronnie, go down and help them out. But he didn't come, and it was like that close. I thought, oh, come on.
Yeah, Stevie Salas, is it right you're one of the 50 best guitar players in the world?
All over the press. But what happened was a Guitar Player magazine or something did a magazine, a special issue called 50 Greatest. There's 3 of them, 3 different versions around the world that I've seen. And I happen to be in the book. And like the cool thing is like Jimmy Page and Ritchie Blackmore and like people like that are in the book, like great guitar players, Keith. But to say anybody's one of the 50 greatest, I mean, I know guys that were playing when I was learning how to play in San Diego that were like better than I have ever been in my life, that just nobody ever knew who they were. There's so many great guitar players, you know.
Yeah.
All that's just marketing.
Well, no, that's good. I mean,
it's cool, but you know, I had a good publicist.
So. I mean, you know, you could be like me, one of the 50 best rock and roll voices unknown.
I was on the cover of Guitar Player. I was on the cover of Guitar Player magazine one time a few years ago, and it said the 15 greatest albums you've never heard. And my album Back from the Living was on there, but also, you know, Iggy Pop was on there, and Pink Floyd was on there, and Montrose, and Living Colour had an album on there. So I didn't feel so embarrassed, but it was almost, it's like a little bit of a compliment and a little bit of a like.
There's no wind between. The sun is high. It's cold in the city. I'm walking the path. No matter how it seems. Generations, yeah. You know what I'm doing. No matter what, I'm here to stay. No matter what, I'm not going away. I'm walking the path, and my shoes are home. Here's it out of dream. You know what I mean. To love all night, your love will give. To love all night, your love will give. Yeah. Sun down. So
Let's talk about a little bit about your music. Do you guys work like a band together in the let's say classical point of view that you meet in the rehearsal room, write together, or how do your songs kind of yeah, wie entstehen die Lieder? How do the songs get together?
It's been so long since we've actually, done, any recent recordings. But when we first did the Nickel Bag record, it pretty much worked like that. Stevie had, called me, had a bunch of ideas, and we sat and worked them up.
Just us two.
Just the two of us.
Moved to New York and rented an apartment, and we sat in there and we worked like a hardcore schedule.
And he called Brian Tichy. Brian Tichy, he's now playing with Foreigner. He's been working with Billy Idol for a lot of time. He's probably one of the best rock drummers in the business. But we did that, and then we didn't have a set bass player, so. Again, we used our friends. We called our whatever friends we had available to us, and we were fortunate enough to have Carmine Rojas, T.M. Stevens, Doug Wimbish, Daryl Jones. Four of the best bass players in the business. They're our friends, and they came to help us out, and boom, that was it.
Yeah, it's. We recorded a ton of stuff since then. Like every time I do an album, Bernard comes and helps me out and sings and helps. And I helped him on his solo album, of course. And we just hadn't sat down and said, in the mid-'90s, what happened was I had a development deal at Warner Brothers to develop a band, and I wanted to develop a band around Bernard because I did an album of covers in the early '90s called The Electric Powwow. And one of the songs Bernard sang, I called him up and he was in New York, and I said, man, one song we did, Bernard, it's like #3 right now on the charts in Asia. And he goes, really? I go, yeah, we should do a whole album. So when Warner Brothers asked me what I want to do, I said, I want to do it with Bernard Fowler. And so I went to New York and we started working on creating like a band project where it wasn't me being the singer and front man, where I got to write. Because a lot of times I write a lot of songs for lots of people, but I can't sing the melodies that are in my head, but Bernard can sing any melody in his head, or any melody I throw at him or anything. He's got the capability to do it. So you have an endless, it gives you a lot more room to be creative. For me, it's much more exciting.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about how you guys started up with music, I know that you had a big wish when you were a young guy.
Yeah. Well, that was when I started singing. I probably did the first show that I had ever gotten paid for. I would think I was 14, 15 years old. I played uptown in Harlem at the Gold Terrace Ballroom, and after that, I kind of had the bug, but I was still a kid, still growing, so I wasn't really sure. And I used to listen to this record up there on the wall.
Headhunters from Herbie Hancock.
Yeah, and I would go to a friend's house after school, and we'd listen to albums. And I said to him at that time, I would read the album cover, and I said to him, I can't wait till I can sing for somebody like Herbie Hancock. And a few years later, my first really big gig, I was singing for Herbie Hancock. I recorded, I think, 2 or 3 albums with him and toured all over the world with him. So that was crazy.
Do you remember when it was?
Ooh. During Rocket.
Okay. Yeah. Early '80s. Huh?
Mm-hmm. You know what's crazy about this whole thing is that you have a teenage guy in New York City, and a black guy. Was your friend black too?
Yeah.
And you're listening to Herbie Hancock, right? Saying, I want to create, it's some pretty deep music. Where nowadays, the kids I run into, it's like, they would just be listening to like T.I. or some horrible fucking hip hop, which musically, mathematically, or anything doesn't even take you into any kind of other shit other than sampling somebody else's music. I mean, I worked on the T.I. record with Justin Timberlake, but I mean, I don't want to slag it, but it's like, look at the difference. You got to listen to fucking Herbie Hancock, Headhunters at 15, how insane that is compared to like listening to fucking 50 Cent or some bullshit like a 15-year-old kid would be listening to now. And you try to figure out why where the intelligence or society or any kind of artistic growth is. It's like, you know, this just dawned on me listening to you say that. I got two 15-year-old guys sitting around listening to Herbie Hancock. I mean, I was 15 listening to Led Zeppelin, and still even Led Zeppelin was musically still to this day incredible, right? But I thought, God, two black guys in New York City would not be listening at 15-year-olds of Herbie Hancock right now, most likely. They'd be listening to hip-hop.
That's right.
Which, you know, hip-hop's cool if you're, you know, it's got its place, but at the same time, the music you were exposed to
helped the growth process
of everything
in a big way.
That just really hit me right there. You saying that, like I think picturing you two teenage guys sitting around listening to Herbie Hancock, saying I want to play with Herbie Hancock, not I want to be rich or I want to get, you know, I want to get my, you know what I mean?
It wasn't even that. It wasn't about being rich. I wanted to sing for Herbie Hancock. I wanted to sing for the Rolling Stones. You know.
Yeah, and Herbie wasn't even known for vocal music till then.
No,
not really. Huh? The Head Hardness album is no vocals, and that came later. Yeah, great.
That just blows my mind though. On a cultural thing, you know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
Stevie, do you have a record where about no, from which you would say this record changed my musical life? You know, it changed me, got me from Led Zeppelin to, I don't know. Are there milestones like this?
No, well, I don't know. There was a lot of milestones, but when I was really young, like I'm talking like 4 or 5 years old, my stepfather was in a rock band, and so I was already really listening to Cream and to Led Zeppelin. I mean, I remember sitting with my stepfather and just listening to Led Zeppelin 1 over and over again, and him being so blown away, and me thinking, this is just fantastic. So I was exposed to Hendrix and all that stuff at a very young age. But what came for me was growing up in San Diego in a town called Oceanside. It was a military town. So all my friends were like, you know, white, black, purple, green, whatever. It was every kind of kid. We surfed, but we all played football and basketball. We did, you know, it was like very round. There was a lot of culture. So I would be listening to Kiss, and like my buddy Marcus on the wrestling team would be listening to Parliament Funkadelic. And he'd say, like, these guys are like the black version of Kiss. And I'm like, so it was never like, it was like, oh, wow, this is all cool too. And I'd listen to the Ramones because I thought it had a cool guitar sound. But I still liked listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire. Because when I'd go to the high school dance, all the girls danced to Earth, Wind, and Fire. And if you want to get some booty, you had to learn how to dance to that shit, right? So it all, to me, made total sense. It all worked. For me, it wasn't like I was brought up in the Midwest and we just listened to this shit, and I was brought up in the city and we listened to. So I was exposed to all those things. So in a way, it was great for my musical career, but it was bad for my career because my whole career, I've always mixed all these different styles, which means the record companies, although I've always had a record deal, it's impossible to try to figure out how to market me. Do we put them on rock radio? He ain't black radio.
This is why we're together.
It's right.
So the same experiences, same experience from listening to all that music. it wasn't one thing that we did. We did a lot of things.
We mix a lot of things, and then record companies don't know how to market that. Right. But that's probably why we can still 20 years later. I mean, my first album came out in 1990, and 20 years later, I mean, I'm playing some of them songs on tour right now from 1990, and the motherfuckers chicks are dancing to them, and you think, wow, that song is 20 years old. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. 20 years old. And so maybe we couldn't have the explosive. Every once in a while, we'd get like a taste of a hit, just enough to where someone would give us some more money and let us keep making records. Or maybe we get to work with someone so cool that other people wanted to try to be associated with that cool, so they'd let us work, and we would benefit from this. But we never had this, like, you know, I can't play. I have fans of the bands that play Monsters of Rock at Donington, but my band would get shit thrown at me if I played at Monsters of Rock at Donington. You know, I got friends, a lot of Taylor Hawkins started with us. His first recording was ever with me and Bernard from the Foo Fighters. But we don't, you know, necessarily, we're not headliners at Reading. You know, it's like an odd spot for us where we kind of always fell in these cracks. But maybe that's why we've had a longer career than most.
Yeah, it's probably marketing-wise, it's difficult, more difficult than others who only do blues, who only do jazz, who only do country and stuff. But isn't it much more fun what you guys are doing? You know,
absolutely. You know, we get to do what we want.
Yeah.
As a result of all that, we really get to do what we want to do. I mean, you know, listen to our records; they've got different flavors all over it. I mean, his record, you know, yes. Predominantly rock record, but there's some hip-hop beats on there, you know, rock over hip-hop, you know, that kind of stuff. And it's not cheesy done. It's not sampled. It's being played.
And it was like that since the beginning. It's never changed.
It's, same thing here.
We focused when we did Nickelback to make a real rock. We wanted to make a rock record. But to us, if you listen to Led Zeppelin, to me, it's full of R&B. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Where a lot of people think of it as heavy metal.
Absolutely.
I mean, John Paul Jones is just playing James Jamerson bass lines through all that shit. Do 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 do. That's straight up Motown, right? So we still made a record that had groove and shit to it, but it was rock. But it's always all those elements have always been in there. And then sometimes if we rock a little extra hard just to fuck with somebody, Bernard's voice will have so much soul in it that you can't deny that it has some soul, you know. And then it's funny because, you know, I played with Rod Stewart, was my first band, and he, to me, in the early days, was an incredible soul singer. He told me he was trying to sing country western when he did Maggie May, but he sounds like a soul singer, really.
And when he was Sam Cooke.
Yeah, exactly. He was really being Sam Cooke, like especially in the Jeff Beck and those. He sounds like Sam Cooke.
That's right.
And it's funny because then later I worked with Terrence Trent D'Arby, and Terrence didn't even listen to Sam Cooke. He was ripping off Rod Stewart, who was ripping off Sam Cooke. Which is really weird, right?
So, okay, you guys, thank you for coming.
Ralph, thank you very much, brother. Good to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you too. No, it's snow outside, you know, not the snow inside.
I want the snow to get in my eyes. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Ja, Keith Richards ist ja schon einiges schuld in seinem Leben, weil er ja auch noch diesen Namen verbrochen hat, International Motherfuckers, für so eine sympathische Band. Ja, ich weiß nicht, ob wir das so zu seinen großartigen Heldentaten zählen können, oder?
Nee, ich glaube nicht. Nein. Wer weiß, vielleicht überlegen sie sich nochmal. Die Platte ist ja noch nicht raus. Warten wir es mal ab. Aber
vielleicht kann man ja aus IMF noch was anderes machen. International Männerfreundschaft oder sowas.
Ja, sowas, ja. Aber ich glaube, es wäre genauso wenig erfolgreich wie International Motherfuckers.
Jedenfalls, die Musik ist super und könnte international erfolgreich werden.
Es wäre schön.
Wenn die Jungs bei euch in der Ecke sind, geht hin, unterstützt die Band, die haben es verdient. Das sind wirklich Leute, die noch Musik vom Herzen machen und vor allen Dingen selber machen, mit eigenen Händen, die sich wehren gegen Logic, Pro Tools und Cubase und 2 Zoll Maschinen anwenden wollen. Also analoge Typen, die zu euch passen, wenn ihr auf Rock steht. Das war
JazzrockTV
mit den I.M.F.s.
Und bis zum nächsten Mal.
Yeah. Ja, das ist ja irgendwie, noch mal kurz zu dem Namen, ne? Das ist ja irgendwie so ein bisschen die Geschichte der Band mit dem unglücklichen Namen. Die sollten eigentlich so Unlucky Name oder sowas haben. Weil früher hießen die ja mal Nickelback.
Ach so, ja, da gab es die Konflikte.
Und heute heißen die Motherfuckers, ist auch nicht so glücklich. Also, okay. Ja. Das waren die Motherfuckers. Das war jetzt ein bisschen durcheinander. Machen wir nochmal.
Ja. Ja, aber die Idee war sich nicht schlecht.
Okay. Ja, grundsätzlich großartig. Ja. Jo, das war unsere heutige Folge und beim nächsten Mal gibt es dann wieder Jazz.
Hier kommen wir irgendwie nicht mehr raus aus der Nummer.
Ich müsste jetzt nochmal eine ganz kurze machen. Ich glaube, so die zweite oder so, die war schon ganz gut, wo wir uns auch so ein bisschen vertändelt haben. Okay, jetzt fangen wir nochmal an.